The Revolving. The most persuasive theory in the entire Severance fandom says Lumon's founder never actually died, and Season 3 is where he comes back. The theory holds that Lumon's real endgame is transferring the consciousness of founder Kier into a living host body, a form of engineered immortality. Supporters point to the ailing patriarch James Egan, who in Season 2 keeps speaking about his revolving, which fans read not as retirement from the chief executive's chair, but as the ritual of passing a consciousness into a new vessel. A Reddit user going by That SoCal Guy popularized the reading that Helena, or her innie Helly R, is being groomed as the carrier for her dying father's mind, or more precisely the mind of Kier himself, already riding inside James' body. And it fits the show's obsessions. Kier's published teachings fixate on cleansing the world of grief and loss, and the cult built around him treats his four tempers as a soul that can be preserved, copied, or reborn. The Severance chip already proves Lumon can partition and relocate a personality inside a single skull, so a full consciousness transfer reads as the next step up the same technology tree. In the Season 2 finale, James tells Helly that he sees Kier in her, the innie, and no longer in his own daughter Helena, language the theory takes as him identifying the successful vessel. If this one is right, it reframes the entire series. Every severed worker becomes a test subject for immortality, and Cold Harbor was a rehearsal. That's why it's the single most shared Season 3 prediction. It makes sense of the Egan cult, the fixation on Kier's tempers, and James' strange favoritism toward Helly. Manufactured heaven. Everything Lumon did to Gemma may have been a product demo for the ultimate consumer good, a way to buy your way out of grief. The Season 2 finale, titled Cold Harbor, revealed that Mark's 2 years of macro data refining were secretly building severed personalities inside his kidnapped wife, Gemma. The final room contained only a single crib she was ordered to disassemble by hand, engineered to force her through her deepest trauma, her inability to conceive. From there, the theory takes a chilling leap. It argues that Lumon's true business is selling separation from pain, a service that lets paying customers sever themselves from every negative experience, grief, loss, and death included. Creator Dan Erickson has confirmed that he intentionally left Cold Harbor's purpose open, refusing to walk viewers through exactly what was being tested or why. But supporters point to a single line. Dr. Maurer tells Gemma that Mark will benefit from the world she is siring, which reads less like therapy and more like a sales pitch for a manufactured paradise on Earth. If Severance is heading to market as a way to delete suffering, the show stops being about one creepy office and becomes about a whole civilization opting out of pain. It hands Lumon a motive that's both banal and monstrous. Profit. Numbers are minds. The scary files you watched Mark sort for 2 seasons might not be data at all. They might be people. The finale confirmed that the numbers Mark refined were a doorway into Gemma's mind, and that each completed file built a new severed consciousness inside her. The theory extends that reveal across the whole company. It argues that macro data refinement isn't analyzing information, it's constructing minds, and that every refiner at Lumon is unknowingly siring severed personalities. Consider how the job actually works. Employees are told to sort numbers by the feeling they give off, the fear, the dread, the joy, which the theory reads as sorting raw emotional material, the building blocks of a psyche. Kier's 4 tempers, woe, frolic, dread, and malice, map neatly onto the emotional bins refiners use, suggesting the entire department exists to reassemble human character from its components. If that's true, the clients and quotas the refiners chase are a cover story, and the real output of the severed floor is consciousness itself. It recontextualizes the show's most mundane image, a man clicking scary numbers, into something genuinely horrifying, an assembly line for manufactured souls. That's why the theory spread so fast the moment the finale ended. The Severed Town. The theory that unsettles fans most isn't about the office at all. It's that the entire town outside it might be part of the experiment. The company town is named for the founder and appears to exist almost entirely to serve Lumon. The theory proposes that the townspeople are past or present test subjects, some possibly severed without ever knowing it, living inside a controlled environment. Bert's confession that he simply ferries people wherever Lumon tells him and then leaves feeds the idea that the town is a managed holding zone. And the uniform devotion to Kier's teachings across the whole community reads less like a company town and more like a closed experiment, one where there may be no outside left to escape to. By the way, if you're enjoying this, I make videos like this all the time, and a subscribe would genuinely help the channel. Thanks. Cobel's Revenge. The woman everyone wrote off as a rigid middle manager turns out to be the real genius Lumon was built on, and she wants it all to burn. In Season 2, Episode 8, titled Sweet Vitriol, the show revealed that Harmony Cobel invented the severance procedure herself, and that Jaime Egan stole the credit. Cobel recovers an old notebook filled with her original blueprints, the severance circuit design, the base code, the overtime contingency, even the Glasgow block. Lumon, the story goes, forced her to stay silent about her authorship or face banishment, and the Egans eventually pushed her out entirely. That confirmed history is the fuel for the prediction. Fans argue that Season 3 turns Cobel into Lumon's most dangerous enemy, the one person alive who can prove the revered Egan dynasty were never the brilliant inventors they claimed to be. Her proof would shatter the cult of Kier at its very foundation, the belief that the family were divinely gifted creators. It flips the show's entire power structure. The frumpy antagonist is actually the origin point of the whole nightmare, and she has every reason to detonate it. That reversal is what makes her the wild card heading into the new season. Lumon's children. The creepiest new face in Season 2 was a child in a manager's suit, and the theory about her is worse than anything the show has said out loud. Miss Huang, played by Sarah Bach, arrived as a deputy manager on the severed floor, a visibly young girl doing an adult's job. The show suggests she isn't severed, but an intern in a Lumon fellowship, being educated in the teachings of Kier Egan. From there, fans argue something darker. The theory holds that Lumon raises children from a very young age, possibly adopted or acquired, then indoctrinates or severs them to manufacture perfectly loyal future workers. Miss Huang mentions that she used to be a crossing guard, which has fueled an even bleaker sub-theory linking her to Gemma's car accident, though that connection is entirely unconfirmed. What sells the reading is her demeanor. She sees nothing wrong with her own treatment, which the theory reads as the product of lifelong conditioning. A child middle manager is Lumon's cruelty made literal. And if the company really does grow its own workforce from childhood, then Severance is only the surface of a much older, much colder machine. The third Mark. Mark spent all of Season 2 trying to merge his two selves back into one person, and the theory says that what comes out the other side won't be either of them. Reintegration is the process of merging an innie and an outie back into a single consciousness. Dr. Ragabi describes it as a full synaptic recoupling, a way to stop the chip from controlling a person based on where they physically are. She began reintegrating Mark after he learned that his supposedly dead wife Gemma might still be alive inside Lumon. The procedure is elaborate. It syncs the divided brain's wave frequencies, delta, theta, alpha, beta, and gamma, monitored on a vibrating Chladni plate, while Ragabi asks a series of memory trigger questions. And it's dangerous. Reintegration sickness comes from the sheer mental stress of two full lifetimes suddenly melded into one brain, and the show frames the likely result as a third identity, neither the innie nor the outie who went in. The finale sharpens the stakes. Innie Mark chose to stay at Lumon and run off with Helly rather than escape with Gemma, which suggests the innie now considers himself at war with his own outie. So the theory predicts that Season 3's central conflict is internal, a partially reintegrated Mark whose two halves want opposite things, making him unpredictable to Lumon and to the Rebellion alike. It weaponizes the show's core idea, that an innie and an outie are genuinely different people. If merging them is a kind of identity homicide, then Mark's quest to save Gemma might cost him the very self who wanted to. The Dead Board. Lumon's most powerful entity has never once appeared on screen, and the leading theory says that's because it isn't alive. The board is Lumon's faceless governing body. No character has ever seen it, or even knows how many members it has. Its orders reach the company only through Natalie, who wears an earpiece and relays whatever the board says. The dominant theory argues the board isn't people at all, but an artificial intelligence built from Lumon's dead chief executives, with fans noting that board could just as easily mean motherboard, not board of directors. A related version holds that it's the uploaded collective consciousness of deceased Egans, or an artificial recreation of Kier himself. Either way, it ties the corporate mystery straight to the immortality theme. If the board is dead Egans running the company from beyond, then Lumon isn't just chasing eternal life, it has already achieved a version of it. Milchick Breaks. The company's most polished enforcer spent all of Season 2 being quietly humiliated, and the theory says Season 3 is where he finally snaps. Mr. Milchick, played by Tremel Tillman, was promoted to severed floor manager, but he spent the season absorbing one insult after another, a performance review policing his big words, and a set of unsettling caricature paintings of Kier redrawn in his own likeness. In the finale, he rewarded Mark with what Lumon calls choreography and merriment, leading a full marching band through the office, right before the celebration collapsed into open rebellion. Helly turned that marching band against Lumon, invoking the co-workers the company had disposed of once their usefulness ran out, and the musicians sided with the severed floor. Tillman himself has teased that in Season 3, everything's in danger, and fans read Milchick's mounting resentment as the setup for a defection. The prediction is that the man who embodies Lumon's smiling corporate face becomes the very crack that brings it down from the inside. Milchick is the company's ideology made charming. If even the true believer breaks, it signals that Lumon's control is failing at every level, not just among the innies. The Four Tempers. Kier's ancient theory of the human soul sounds like corporate nonsense, but the finale proved that Lumon can actually build a mind out of it. Kier Egan's philosophy claims that every human soul is made of four tempers: woe, frolic, dread, and malice, each present in a precise ratio. Every temper even has its own icon: woe, a weeping bride; frolic, a grinning jester; dread, a terrified crone; and malice, a ram. Kier taught that mastering these tempers grants control over yourself and the world around you, and the theory says Lumon takes that literally as an engineering specification. Cold Harbor delivered the payoff. Mark's refining sorted Gemma's tempers into whole new innies, proving Lumon can isolate and reassemble human emotion at will. It reframes the company's cult scripture as an actual instruction manual for manufacturing consciousness, where the mysticism and the technology turn out to be the same thing. Irving's return. One of the show's core four vanished on a train in the penultimate episode, and the theory says he's the one who exposes everything. In Season 2, Episode 9, Bert reveals himself as a Lumon driver, but instead of following orders, he puts Irving on a one-way train out of town with his dog Radar, helping him disappear rather than be dealt with. Lumon, it seems, had been closing in on Irving because he simply knew too much. Before he left, Irving abandoned his obsessive paintings of the mysterious exports corridor he'd spent seasons mapping. John Turturro, who plays him, has said those paintings could lead to big surprises in Season 3, which feeds the theory that Irving returns as an outside investigator who finally cracks Lumon open. He's the only major character now operating beyond the company's walls, which makes him the theorized wild card, the one who could strike from the single place Lumon can't fully control. Gemma's rebellion. Lumon spent an entire season trying to erase Gemma's mind, and the theory says the woman they tried to delete becomes the one who ends them. Gemma, Mark's wife, was held captive on Lumon's testing floor, a hidden level called the Exports Hall, and forced through dozens of severed rooms by Dr. Maurer, each one activating a different manufactured personality. She was the raw material for Cold Harbor, the person whose four tempers Mark unknowingly refined into brand new innies. In the finale, she managed to escape the testing floor and reach the severed floor's exit, only for Innie Mark to abandon her and stay with Helly. From there, fans predict a reversal. Once Gemma fully understands what was done to her, the theory goes, she becomes the leader of the Season 3 rebellion, the single survivor with the strongest personal reason to burn Lumon to the ground. Her intimate knowledge of the testing floor, a place almost no one else has seen and lived, makes her uniquely dangerous to the company. Gemma has spent 2 seasons as the show's object, the thing being fought over and experimented on. Handing her agency, turning the victim into the revolutionary, would be the most satisfying reversal the show could possibly pull. Severing death. Pull every one of these theories together, and you get the single idea that might explain the entire show. Lumon isn't a company, it's a machine for defeating death. Start with the clues the show has already handed us. Season 2, Episode 7, was titled Chikai Bardo, a reference to a bardo in Tibetan Buddhism, which Gemma describes on screen as a man fighting his own psyche, an ego death and dissolution. The unifying theory reads the whole series through that lens, as a story about consciousness surviving death. Severance splits the self, reintegration merges it, and Cold Harbor builds entirely new selves out of raw emotion. Then there are the goats. Lumon's mammalian's nurturable department raises them as sacrificial animals, entombed with the dead to, in Mr. Drummond's words, guide their spirit to Kier's door. That's a literal death cult ritual, hiding in plain sight. Add Kier's promise to cleanse the world of grief and loss, which the theory reads as a promise to conquer mortality itself. Combine it all with the Revolving, and the theory lands on Lumon's true product, reincarnation, a way to move a consciousness past death, first for Kier, and eventually for its paying customers. If Cold Harbor was the proof of concept, then Season 3 is where Lumon attempts it at scale, and where the severed workers finally realize they were building their own afterlife. It's the theory that swallows every other theory: immortality, the manufactured heaven, the dead board, the tempers, the goats. If Severance was always about beating death, then the quiet horror of that office was a religion in disguise all along, and Season 3 is its resurrection. If you enjoyed going this deep on the theories, consider subscribing so you don't miss the next one. Thanks for watching.